but probably the best panel of all because most of us are all CTOs, and as we all know, at the end of the day, which is where we are now, CTOs know how to get the job done. So we're going to be talking about infrastructure and how to make it happen. I live and work in Hong Kong, which is very advanced from an infrastructure point of view, with 5 fixed operators, 4 mobile operators, in a space of 2.3 million homes and 7 million people. So it's a very competitive place. And so therefore, we have to be innovative in Hong Kong to be competitive. And smart living, or the smart connected home, has become the flagship entry into our smart city world in Hong Kong. But will smart cities come from an amalgam of smart homes and smart living in a kind of a bottom-up service sector approach, or will it be a top-down government-led approach? These are some of the questions which surround the development of smart cities. I can give you a good example from our smart homes, where we've developed a situation where we've put in home automation and all types of smart living within the home, smart entertainment systems and various systems. And we got an approach unexpectedly from the power company, the utility company, who came to us and said, look, we want to do smart energy. We want to be able to put in smart meters and monitor the consumption and try to manage energy. But unfortunately, as a power company, we only build as far as the meter outside the home. We do not enter the home. So how can we work with you, because you're inside the home with the home gateway, the set-top boxes, the home networks? How can we work together to gather data on the customer's temperature and, in the homes, and manage the air conditioning and try and control the temperature? Because if we can smooth out the peak loading every day during the summer periods, when a customer comes home from work and switches his air conditioning on at 7 o'clock, and everyone in Hong Kong comes home at 7 o'clock and switches their air conditioning on, is there any way we can work with the customer to give him a lower cost of energy, but in return we have to be able to switch on the air conditioners and pre-cool the home earlier on in order to manage the energy? And if we can do that, we can save 20% of our energy costs. This is what the power company said to us. So it made me think that there were different ways of looking at how smart cities develop, and one of them could be the bottom-up approach from an amalgam of smart homes all coming together, or from the top-down approach, which we've heard so much about this afternoon. So, but today we're going to focus on the issues surrounding the infrastructure from network devices and data management point of view. And to help me discuss some of these questions, we have an eminent team of panelists from around the region and across the industry to give us their views. So we have, just my list again.
It is an app.
Hmm?
It is an app.
There is an app, yeah, I know. There's a I sure had it. I put it somewhere, have I? Oh, yes, back down here. So I've got Dr. Junaid Syed from CommScope in an infrastructure product line management from CommScope. I've got Mounir Ladki, the CTO of MyCom OSI. Richard Jones, the Smart Cities Committee of the FTTH Council. Yousef Abu Mutawe, who's the CTO of Zain in Jordan. Imad Hamid from Alpha, CTO at Alpha. And then we have Marwan Dalmook from who's the Senior VP Technology, Security, Risk and Management of Do. So, so to manage the questions across the panelists within the time frame, I'm going to pick a couple of panelists for each question. But if others have a burning point, maybe they can just chip in and answer along the way, and then later take some questions. Smart cities mean lots of things to many people, and so let's start by just looking at a couple of what we think might be the early services comprising a smart city, and what types of infrastructure would be needed to support it. Would it be predominantly energy, environment, or transportation, or will it be more likely to be smart homes, as I've mentioned earlier? So maybe I can ask Mounir, and then maybe Richard to kick it off with those two. Mounir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, basically, I think, as you said in the beginning, Paul, we have two approaches here. One that is more top-down, heavy approach, which is, I think, where a whole planning of a smart city is undertaken and can focus on not only some of the lightweight, I would say, smart services, but on the heavy infrastructure, such as the energy, the water, then later on followed by transportation and the various services, and such types of approaches would be either possible for new cities, because when you're building a city from scratch, I would say a new city, and we have a few projects here in this region for such new cities, it makes it easier to plan it in this way. And I think then the focus could be, you can plan it from the beginning, the enablers of the smart city will be embedded in the infrastructure from when you plan the city. And then you have existing cities where the problem is more complex for two reasons. One, because you can't, the work that is needed to make the existing, all the infrastructure smart is much more demanding, more costly, more complex to implement. And on the other hand, you have to justify the investment. And just to go back to the previous panel, where we said, for example, in Dubai, it's driven by vision of happiness, etc. Well, I think in most of the cases, it had to be driven by P&L. In most of the cities in the world, it will not be driven by, the happiness. It will be driven by how much money I can save on energy, for example, or how much money I can save on the transport systems if I did it with this, in a smart way. So I think in existing cities or where you have P&L considerations, I think it will be mostly smart cities will be focusing, I think, initially on what I call lightweight things, such as, for example, smart metering or the parkings or the transportation, rather than the fundamental, infrastructure. And then we will see also a lot of public-private initiatives, with some of the initiatives being driven by private sectors, such as health, for example, healthcare, and so on. So I think we will see two approaches, but I think the second one will prevail in most of the cases.
But that would mean that for every service, it would have to have its own standalone business case, would it not? And the problem is that you want to have a common infrastructure, and no one business case could pay for that common infrastructure.
Absolutely. In fact, the way I think this is the drawback on the second one, that it will drive silo-based initiatives. So you will have different initiatives, different services having their own business cases, and then driven in silos, which means that each one of them will have its own requirements, its own hardware, its own sensors, its own networks, its own protocol. And initially we will see, I believe what we will see is services, smart services, but built in silos. Later on, some consolidation would happen. But initially, yes, I think unless you are building a smart city from scratch, but there are initiatives in the industry. For example, IPv6, for just one, to cite one example, is being chosen as the protocol by the IPSO Alliance to harmonize all the sensor networking. For example, because right now you have so many protocols, for example, used and so on. So we will see some initiatives like this to harmonize the networking of the sensors, etc. But I believe that will come in a second step. Initially, you will see a lot of silos and a lot of services having their own P&L. This is the only sustainable way of doing it in most of the cities around the world.
So, Richard, how do you think the infrastructure would come in to support that if it's built in silos?
I'd teach politicians to read, because it's not difficult. I sat with a politician and she said, what's the proof that broadband has any benefit on the economy? And I said, well, there's 118 studies I can send you. And she said, no, but where's the proof? And we sat next to somebody from Sweden and we talked about Skype and Spotify, and these wonderful companies formed in this sort of rich clever, intelligent society backed by digital stuff. And you just go through, and if the politician would actually read this, you can get 0.3% GDP increase by doubling the average broadband speed. And when you double it again, you get another 0.3%. You get 1% increase in GDP by getting 10% more people on broadband. So why I'm saying this now is that if you haven't got that nervous system in a city, if you haven't got that infrastructure in some way, shape or form acting fast enough, you can't have a smart city. You've got isolated sensors, isolated systems which don't talk to one another. And it's the joy and the beauty of Dubai that because of the network that they have there, and also my friend Amar in QMBN, because of that fibre infrastructure, they can layer all these things on top. So I would be...
So you're advocating a national broadband network paid for by the government that believes in the GDP increases from...
Cost to do fibre in the whole of Europe, 250 billion. Payback on that just over 2 years. If I'm a businessman with that budget, I'm saying, let's do it. And then my friend Mohammed, and it's very worrying, I'm normally sat watching him say things, and he's much better than me, so I'm not sure I should be here. But in that case, if you, as a businessman, you look at it and say, this is a no-brainer. And then you sort of talk about all the things we're talking about, smart cities on top of that, the GDP, the economic impact, being faster, competing as what those cities will be for investment. Yeah, I go first with the, once that nervous system is in place, people will figure out ways of making money with it.
But as a CTO, I mean, I see that if we go down a level from the city down to the network operator level,
yep.
Right? We've got a commercial business, we've got a consumer business, and they all depend on the fibre network, but neither of them could individually put a case together to build a fibre network. So someone somewhere has to make the bigger decision.
Correct.
And how do we elevate that up to the city level while still, provisioning for the participation of the
well, you have to be smart about
network
it.
operators.
So in Oman, Fibre Time Council, we had the monies with us at our conference. There, the wastewater network was used when that was dug up. Changed the business case, changed the rules. In Ireland, working with the utility company, with the electricity company to use that, you have to change the rules. These are big investments. So if you're going with a P&L thing, you've really got to change the rules in some very cunning ways. But yeah, this is government-led. We've seen the vision here. We've heard Dr. Aisha today. It's very clear. But sadly, politics is going to get in the way in a lot of other places.
But so far, the national broadband networks have been fibre-based. Can I maybe ask Yousef, will it be both fixed and mobile networks? I should think it will be. But will there be certain smart services which are absolutely the domain of the ultra broadband network?
Well, just I want to go back to the main issue behind being smart. I do believe today all operators, they have certain smart transactions that are running right now. And every operator today, they have their SIM cards or their network serving, metering, remote controls, surveillance, and all of that already exists today, but in silos. I do believe today operators are not really provided with a scope of work that is really standardized and defined by the visionary of the city or the visionary of the area. And this is what we lack today. Most of the delays that happens because of the smart cities or why not we are not smart is not really because of the infrastructure. Today, most of us, they have fiber, they have the wireless networks up to the latest technologies, and this is what others have. What we lack today is to have the universal roadmap that really relevant to the customer, that really will transfer and make us more smarter or to make our life better. And this is what we lack today. In our region, in the MENA, except probably Dubai, recently Qatar, and probably Bahrain, the other areas still, they don't have the vision how to evolve there. Still, they are either individual initiatives or private sector initiatives. Both of them will never make a smart city. Smart city requires a visionary, a holistic joint cooperation between private and government as well to reach there. So, in my opinion, today us as operators, one of our painful areas is the lack of that vision, because the lack of that vision is really making us losing opportunities and money as well. We have the network, we have the infrastructure to build the content and the data and the central database and to provide the customer with the access. This is the simplest way. this is the simplest icon within the smart city ecosystem. The other parts, which are hard, defining the roadmap, this is something essential, and we lack it in our region. The second thing, the collaboration, workflow, and mechanism between us and other parties is not really mature in our region. And today in our region, we don't have the practice where the private sector and the public sector, they have this collaboration workflow going in the right model. And the third thing, which is very much important, is the mental shift. And this is an essential need to move into the smart cities. Mental shift should happen first at the government, not at the customer, at the consumer mind. And if you go back 5 years ago, nobody was thinking about the need to have Facebook or WhatsApp. Today, everybody is in need. If we can unleash the need for the e-services and automated services, then the customers will get addicted too. So this mental shift has to happen from decision makers who should invest from their pocket. And this is where nobody is ready to do. And this is the starting point. Us, as mentioned, we cannot go into making the e-learning libraries ready, and the e-health libraries ready, and the e-things ready from our assets and investments. This will never happen. And the only thing to have this happen is through a joint cooperation between private and government sector to reach there. And this is how things move.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it's more a case of the operators today can drive a lot of things because they have the infrastructure, and like in my case, the power company came along and saw a partnership there. And if you get a few of those happening, you get those silos of
Now we are trying to drive, and today with the utility companies, and electricity and water companies, we are approaching them to have the smart meters even subsidized by us. And yet we are not reaching into a conclusion. You know why? Because they believe that this is an opportunity they have to leverage on. Because there are too many decision makers within the ecosystem. And those too many decision makers should mainly converge into one. And this one should be a visionary within a country who has the power to mandate in each player within the ecosystem to provide. And this is what happens in Dubai. If it's left to do Al-Etisalat alone, and excuse us, our friends, they will never do it. It's mandated by a framework that is defined by a higher power within the country. And this is what we lack in most of the cities in MENA.
How about a response from Etisalat? Or from Do, sorry.
Actually, from Do side, we believe that, I do agree, it was initially, let's say, when Do came up in the picture, and they put TR came and they put Etisalat and Do to agree on the interconnect agreement, there was a battle initially to agree on the go-ahead and what exactly the connectivity has to be. So I totally agree, and this is what we have today in Dubai, and we are really proud with our governance and to see exactly how we are going to lead and how we are going to have a proper mandates to share. And the first thing that we have realized from this is to start initially with the Wi-Fi UAE, and we never call it Do Wi-Fi or something like this because we believe in sharing. The openness on the infrastructure sharing, that is will easy and will provide more efficiency on rolling out and helping smart city initiatives to grow within the city itself. So I totally agree.
Just if you allow me, today in Jordan, we came up with initiative to roll out Wi-Fi for free. Users are using our network for free. You know how much hassle we have in order to get the municipalities to agree on installing our Wi-Fi hotspots in the poles. It goes into tens of rounds of discussions in order to allow us to mount our poles and our Wi-Fi hotspots.
Yeah, but everybody's doing Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi isn't exactly smart cities. It's just rolling out infrastructure.
I'm not saying just this is a small element within the whole setup. Imagine if this small element goes into that bureaucratic approach, how long it will take in order to change all elements within the ecosystem.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I have a particular problem with Wi-Fi. If you look at Singapore, for instance, they're putting Wi-Fi everywhere, after they've already given all these mobile operators the spectrum that they've had to pay a lot of money for, and now they're going to give people free access to Wi-Fi. And you think, what are these governments thinking? Where is the roadmap?
They're thinking about their people rather than your profits. How bad governments. No, but you're right, they're ripping you off in a way.
Exactly. Imad, any views?
Actually, what we are talking here is a smart city. The discussion is smart city. We need to keep in mind that we will not have only one smart city. We will have smart cities. And maybe these smart cities need to interact also between each other. So we need the standard, as my colleague said. We need to standardize this way of communication and exchanging information between cities, knowing that we need also, in one city, we need to standardize the interoperability between systems. Well, we will have a lot of systems, from e-government to health to, I don't know, smart homes, smart cars, smartphone even. So we will have a variety of systems using fiber optic, using wireless broadband, whatever. This is a tube just to pass this information. But this interconnectivity and interoperability between systems, I don't think it exists today in one city. So what we talk about smart cities, and the cities need to interact between each other to form smart country, and then smart country should interact also with other country for travel issues, security issue, whatever. I think this is a main missing item in all this exercise or this concept for now, because all the smart cities are still like kind of proof of concept, or not a real complete smart city. It's still a e-government, for example, level here in Dubai or plus. In Beirut, it's nothing. In Jordan, they are trying like us. There is no standard yet what the smart city means. There is trials, which they are very promising trials, let's say. But we don't have standards yet.
But I don't disagree. I think absolutely right. Common infrastructure standards, whether it's at the city level, yes, or the national level, or the international level.
On the technical level, I mean, I'm not saying on the decision level or on the governmental level. Yeah. Even on the technical, we don't have a standard.
Well, medical data structures or
exactly,
all those things have to be there. But is there not just too many vested interests across all of these different cities, and have to bring that together as a? And if you have to wait for a common standard, it could take forever.
No, we will not. We are not waiting. Actually, the standard. We are waiting the direction and the decision. Again, it's not technical this time. It's maybe political or governmental. It's not. As an operator, we cannot build our own city. We may build our own office. Yes, smart office. It's not smart city. It's very limited. This is what we can do as an operator at our level in our country. Of course, it's different than do or CTO here in Dubai, because they have other vision for the city itself and for the country. So it's different between countries. I mean, like especially in our region. We're not talking about European region here. We are talking about Middle East, where each country has its own vision and different than the other countries.
So are we really saying it's too early for us to be having this discussion?
No, it's the right time. No, it's not, because smart city is not for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The complete smart city, it will come in maybe in 10 years. It's not tomorrow, smart city. We may go to, again, e-government. It's okay. We have already our smartphone. It's a smart device, also smart agent that will be used in the smart city. But the complete smart city, it's not for tomorrow. It will come hopefully in the coming 5 or 10 years. But today, it's the right time to start discussion about the smart city and standardization and way of interconnection between systems and between cities. We need to start putting some standards, like we did for the 2G, the 3G, 4G, and now we are talking about 5G. We are waiting the standard to build the system. And the smart city, we are starting building the system without any standard, which is okay. But we need to standardize this, especially that a lot of vendor will interact also. It's not only one provider.
Yeah. Junaid, any views?
Thank you very much. Well, we have been discussing since lunch about the smart cities, various definitions, various expectations that come up. So definitely I fully agree that first of all there has to be a business case for something, otherwise things will not move forward. Sometimes happiness itself is not a yardstick, but the outcome of the happiness can bring something, and that can make the business case strong. That is a possibility. The other thing is, I think very well said, that the broadband connectivity is important for the digital economy and is directly related to the GDP, as it was mentioned. And till the time that mindset will not be set, definitely there will not be coordinated efforts. So the things are available, but the main thing is whether they are coordinated, integrated, well understood or not, and what is the vision, what people expect at the moment. So for all these things, now if I'm living in Scotland, perhaps my definition of a smart city is different than a person who's living in Indonesia, that this is what he is looking for. And the yardsticks also vary from places to places, culture to culture, regions to regions. But in the end, I think the objective is to use the information and communication technologies, and some people think it is the use of information and communication technology and give services to the citizens of any place. But in my view, this is very small scope. We have to think beyond that, as it was mentioned, that these information and communication technologies can give you the intelligence. But intelligence does not mean things are smart. There is a journey between intelligence to smartness. So it is intelligent that you have the informations, but the smartness comes, how do you extrapolate? How do you use that information to reduce the cost, to reduce the waste, to improve the economy, and in other words, to energy resources also, and other factors also. So from that point of view, for example, the city which is started from 0, it is very easy to think, oh, I am going to make a smart city. But in most of the cases, we will not have that happen. We will be basically talking about cities where people are already living. So we need to have an infrastructure. Now for infrastructures, definitely you need to have informations, data. So the data centers becomes very important, first of all. The question comes how efficient that data centers are, and whether the resources are optimized in a nice way or not, and what solutions are being provided by different manufacturers and different suppliers in terms of data centers. Then the next thing comes, the city is made up of buildings, and in a buildings, energy and utilities is a very important component. So the second thing comes that how efficiently the energy is used. For example, in any typical building, 35% energy is used for lighting. So is there a network of sensors which can detect movement, which can detect temperature, which can detect illumination with an objective to maximize the output and minimize the expenses? And then there will be a good business case for it. And similarly, if the same thing can be applied to the data centers and other things also. But once you will start putting the infrastructure, definitely you have the data, you have the information, now you need to communicate it. And for that, definitely optical fiber is one of the things, but we don't have always that luxury because of trenching and those things. So the wireless broadband things will also come up. The moment wireless broadband thing comes, then the technology and the market is moving. Earlier, from the wireless connectivity point of view, you used to see big antennas sitting on a tower and few links. But now, the connectivity is going in a different way. Big antennas are going to small antennas. People are going for higher frequencies. And the other aspect comes, the environment needs to be zoning friendly. So zoning friendly point of view, the concealed solutions are available or not. And if you are using a spectrum and all that thing, then a spectrum constraint comes in. And that spectrum, which is very important for the digital economy of any country, how efficiently the technologies are being used to use that spectrum. So that is another factor which needs to be considered. So it is a complete ecosystem. And then again, when you say it is smart, for example, when I was talking to my son, he lives in, my home is in Scotland, I was talking to my son, I said, look, I live in Dubai, I was trying to impress him, this is my iPhone, I can find this. And he's a young guy, young surgeon in Edinburgh. He looked at me, laughed. Oh, very good. This is very smart. He said, well, when I go to Princes Street on Edinburgh station, my mobile phone pop up and it says that your next train is this time. So there are two things. One thing is the information is available. I can get it. This is what we are at the moment. The second thing is the system knows what information do I need. So before I ask for it, that is available to me. So there is more of an artificial intelligence and all. So I think the supply and demand and the expectations keep increasing, especially in the young generations. And the expectations are to get the lifestyle slightly different way. So all these things, I think, are playing very important role. But you're right, nobody is going to make a standard that this is the definition of smart cities. It will evolve by itself.
Well, yeah, exactly. What you're saying is really just the applications are evolving now over the top of telco networks. So the broadband infrastructure is there to support them. The apps are being developed and using or collaborating with the telcos to do it. So it's not really anything that's government-led. And I just keep thinking, is it all going to come from bottom-up applications? And at some point in time, the governments will get together and start to pull the information together.
So recently, for example, I'm a member of the ETSI TM4 committee. One of the things which comes from the smart city point of view, the energy efficiency. So recently, ETSI has defined a definition of the energy efficiency, how to define energy efficiency from the communication point of view. I think we spent 2 years in defining the energy efficiency. And then now finally we agreed this is the definition of energy efficiency. So for example, for any typical efficiency point of view, it is a ratio of benefit to the cost. So from a communication point of view, the benefit is your capacity and the distance. So in the numerator, you say capacity and the distance, and the cost is your bandwidth and your the cost of your power. So I think these are things which are very important, which are coming up, but it will take its time.
Well, from what I see, the power companies, they're doing their own things already. They're starting to work on their own, and they'll be doing their own standards, doing their own developments. So I still don't see where the standards would come in, because at the end of the day, there's going to be so many different implementations of the same solutions in different ways.
Alone. Again, the bottleneck is not really the standards themselves. Again, the smartness has two ends: information creation, information transportation. Information creation itself, not only the operator or single element or entity can create the whole needed information. Information creation for transportation, for health, for education, has different entities who has to take care of. So this is the burden here. It's not really to have standards between us and these entities, but who will take the initiative to start creating these data. Us as a carrier or operator, we can transport these data. We can expedite the transformation for these data. We can get all customers connected to these data. But to create these data, and where the smartness really happens with the data itself, not with the system. So creating the data is really the issue. How to do that? Us as operator, we cannot do it. Single stakeholder within the ecosystem cannot do it. We need all elements within the ecosystem to do it. And as an example today, Central Bank of Jordan got the initiative to have a central M-payment platform. They took the initiative. They mandated in all operators in Jordan to have an M-payment platform. Now, but till the moment, we don't have the need to use the M wallet for any service. We don't have a critical need to use it. And your debit card, you use it. Why? Because your cash came by default to your, the cash in happens by force to your debit card. Yes? The ones who have a wallet, why should go to an ATM to make cash in to their wallet? And for what purposes to use it? If there is no killer need, nobody will use m-commerce. One of the killer needs is to have the M-payment, the bill payment over the M-wallet. This will create probably a need for the customer to pay for the bills through the mobile, instead of going and having a queue and all of that.
Yeah, but you said that we don't have the data. Other people have the data, but we can certainly communicate the data. We have the networks. I think we can assume that the infrastructure, the broadband infrastructure, is pretty well there. And then we've also got the situation where, like in my case, the power company comes to me, says, can I help to implement the command and control inside the home and gather the data? They've also asked, because we have data centers, can we do the data analysis? Then all they have to do is set the criteria, and we can do the overall end-to-end management. And I would put it to you guys that as an enterprise division within a telco, our salesmen are always looking for some of these solutions for the enterprises that can go out and sell. And there are opportunities there, given the fact that we already have the underlying infrastructure to play with.
Yes, and I think all, there is a role today. Let's be a little bit more pragmatic, okay? Because we can talk about the vision of a smart city, etc. Then let's, because most of us are CTOs
I'm talking about
here.
now and getting things
So let's
done now.
let's bring it down a little bit from the to the. Let's go back to the first or second floor, okay? To make things happen, because we need to make things happen. So I think let's focus on smarter initiatives, making the cities smarter rather than thinking of the holistic, like the end goal of a smart city, okay? And this morning we spoke a lot about the OTT's threat and not knowing what. I mean, we were left almost with the impression that the industry needs to reinvent itself, but it hasn't gone to the point where it figured out what to do next, how to grow, how to fight against OTT threat. Today, I think the telecom operators have great assets. They have the infrastructure first. I mean, most of them. Let's say we have fiber. There could be more investment, and sharing with the public sector in terms of the fiber. But there are many operators who have already, broadband, fixed broadband, mobile broadband as well, LTE or other connectivity technologies. They have not only the connectivity. They have there are the data centers, the storage capability, and they can develop analytics. And
information on the customers.
And of course, and I'm coming to it, and then all the information to bill for the services and the information on the customers. So here you have many assets already available today, or to a great extent available, that could be leveraged to make the telco act as a systems integrator, as a solution integrator, enabling the implementation of some of these smarter cities initiatives. And this will take a collaboration between the telco and the verticals. For example, the health, or such in your case, the energy sector. But then it has to be, for me, why not the telco themselves having the initiative to go and building use cases for these initiatives and business case for it.
That's a very good use cases. To me, when you talk about big data, you talk about smart cities, the best way to understand it is to have a set of use cases.
Yes, and the use case, and I'll tell you what the use cases are by definition. Take it this way: there are infinite amount of use cases, because in the concept of when you talk about smarter initiatives, you collect data, or big data has to be an integral part of it. You collect big data, and the rule is always that that data that is collected will be used for different purposes than it was initially collected for. For example, you spoke about the smart meter, okay? The smart meter is, initially the data is collected to optimize energy. But then it can be analyzed for the purpose of, when you are collecting data, for example, you can analyze it to see if, I don't know, your elder, if you have a sibling, for example, or some elderly siblings sitting somewhere alone, you can have an alert if by 8 p.m. the TV was not on, because this means that something goes wrong. Just to give you an idea that the data initially was collected for optimizing energy, but then it can be used for other use cases that can be monetized. So, and I think today, I don't know if operators are developing, like they have business development teams in place who are thinking of such initiatives and going and engaging those other verticals, such as healthcare, typically, and energy, to cite these two, to build use cases and business cases around it. And I think from a technology perspective, we have a lot of the foundational building blocks to deliver those solutions and to monetize them, and will contribute to making the cities smarter.
I think you've got something there, but one of the things that always comes up when I see some of this in the challenges that we face is when you're doing a new building, building intelligent building, build it all like that, but the vast majority of the buildings in Hong Kong are already quite old, and they have built-in air conditioners that are not remote controlled, and they've got lots of non-automatic equipment. And how do you deal with legacy upgrades to build the infrastructure, to start and collect the data that you need, and to manage the control of the equipment to make those smarter decisions? I think there's a lot of upgrading that has to do, which is going to have an inertia in itself to get there. Imad, do you have any views on that?
Sorry? Again, we'll back to the previous subject. the interconnectivity and the interoperability between systems also again. Just I need to add one remark about the data and the usage of the data. You may use the data for a good purpose, honestly. In our region, we have to be careful about using the data for the wrong purposes. So data security in a smart city, especially, it's very, very important. Okay? I mean, because here you are collecting the complete data of a complete city in one single equipment. So here we have a big risk, I think, from security point of view. Of course, the goodwill is to use this data for the best of everybody. This is the purpose of the smart city at the end. It's not. Now, for the Singapore case, I mean, again, we need to take a decision to start the building the smart city. As an operator, I will repeat, maybe myself, we have started some initiative. From even we are building an LTE network for what? It's not only for browsing or for watching video. We have more capacity to do many other things. So it's a part of the smart city preparation, if we can say. Fiber optic also. If we have a fiber optic, it's not also to browse Google or to browse Facebook. We don't need the fiber optic to do so. We are preparing the ground for the smart city. Now we are waiting. If we go to basic, also city is what? Is infrastructure. It's building, offices, home, hospitals, cars, road, highways, and so on. And you have the citizen. The citizen, which is environmental, how they are living, the smartphone that they have, and you have the government. The smart city should, I mean, it will group all these three main titles, let's say. Mm-hmm. The e-government for the governance, for all related to police, to visa, to passport, you name it. Now for the people, again, you start with your smartphone, to smart car, to smart home. Even smart home is not smart home, it's automated home. It's more than smart, it's automated. It's not waiting any order from the owner to do something. He's doing by himself. It's automation. It's more, for me, it's more than smart home. And now we start seeing the smart TV. We have in some countries some also use cases or proof of concept for a complete home automation automated system with interconnectivity with police department and other departments.
Yeah, but sticking the name smart in front of TV doesn't actually make a smart TV, does it? Just gives you a TV with the name smart TV.
No, smart TV, it means that it's connected to the internet.
Yeah, exactly, but so is my PC, but it doesn't make a smart
For the
PC.
end user, it's a smart TV because we have internet. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not the bad title, smart TVs, but connected to the internet means that he can do everything.
Yes, yeah.
If you have the application behind to support this, what we want, actually what you want to do by this TV. Watching TV only, it's easy. You can buy a normal TV, or you can use any old TV. Smart TV, I have a smart TV at home, but I'm not using it as smart TV. Exactly. I'm using a normal TV because I don't have the application behind to be able to use it as a smart TV.
It's watching you. I'd like to bring Marwan in here, because you mentioned about big data, and we talked about data gathering, data sharing, lots of devices and that. And I know that he has a concern for the security and the data side of things. So, what do you think?
Building any kind of data gathering without the right basic security practice around it, for sure it will enable further risks and especially once you are opening your systems and your network to a hostile environment, which is the internet. There should be, and today we've been practicing all the right security standards around the globe, from an infrastructure perspective, application perspective, data analysis. These are the basic. Whoever would like to start building, since we're talking about smart cities, there should be a clear strategy of security within the same strategy of building a smart city. Without having this hands in hand, it will fall apart. Once you start opening these networks together, yes, for sure, you'll start having a lot of issues, a lot of attacks, attempts, especially once you start having, and we start seeing this right now in the field.
Well,
TVs are attacking us, refrigerators are attacking us. Why? Because they've been enabled with internet connectivities, and these are connected with, and the hackers start creating malwares. They just send it to them, and these devices start propagating it. So we have to be very careful when we start putting our hands into these areas without having a proper strategy, a security strategy behind it.
Do we need a closed intranet or some sort of closed managed network rather than the open internet to do this, to protect it?
I don't believe that there will be a closed network. Since to an open share environment, and we are expecting everybody to start sharing information. Even we are expecting our citizens to start sharing their challenges, issues, why they are actually in the city. Otherwise, how we are going to gather this kind of information and drive it to the decision makers? So again, we should have practice the right security and the right awareness. And the key for us is to educate, again, the end users, educate the decision makers how to do this kind of
But the dangers are frightening when you're starting to look at smart health and all of the remote diagnostics and machinery and sensors and that, and the types of attacks that we could have and the types of malware we could have. Can we stop it? Is it possible to stop it, or is it just going to become so endemic that it brings down everything we try to do? How can we protect it?
But when you speak about such devices, it's not only security concerns. I think other types of, you have at least two other types of concerns, and especially for services like health. One is today the unknown behavior and the patterns of the devices, which are completely different from from the smartphones. You know that in Telenor Norway, and I'm talking about, and this is public news, and Telenor is our customer, so I'm talking about something we know. The 3 vending machines brought the whole network down in Norway. This was about a year ago. They brought the whole network down because of the excess of signaling they were sending. They removed the SIM cards from they wiped out, they canceled those machines from the HLR, but they kept the SIM cards inside the machines, and the machines kept trying to send identification.
But that wasn't malicious, though, was it? That wasn't intended.
But no, that was not malicious. To tell you that there are other challenges than just malicious intent. By nature, today's operators' network are not necessarily tested and proven to support basic M2M traffic, let alone what is generated in a smart city. I mean, the operators today also need to do a lot on that side to understand what kind of patterns, what kind of load is going to be generated on their networks, and if their networks are capable today to deliver the kind of SLAs that are required when you want to transport critical health information, and you can't satisfy yourself with the 98% availability. So from that perspective also, and that is maybe for later on, but there is a lot of work to be done on the networks themselves to ensure that they are capable of delivering these SLAs and this quality of service that is required, and they can sustain the load and the kind of behavior of the devices that are and the sensors that are involved in smarter cities. And just on one last point on that one, I think the operators here again can play a role in facing the customers, because if I have a sensor today at home, many sensors, okay, and right now in a smart city, and a lot of my services, my basic living is dependent on all these devices, and then something breaks down. Who breaks down? Who do I call? Who is my first line support?
My son.
Is it? Well, but that's the
he's really good.
This is the point, that here again I think the operators have a role to play in being that first line support and monetize it again, because they will act as a solution integrator and as the first line support.
I've got a quote here. I just want to see what people think about this. It's to do with vendors. And it was a book, Anthony Townsend, Smart Cities, said, if Siemens and Cisco aim to be the electrician and plumber for the smart city, IBM's ambition is to be their choreographer, superintendent, and Oracle rolled into one. So I'm really asking, what are the opportunities for infrastructure vendors, and does it go well for the supplier's role as a supplier, or do they become more involved in the operations, do you think? They're trying to do with the thought leadership here, and I just wondered if if there's any views as to what roles they might play, or just as would they be limited to a vendor, or would the IBMs of this world suddenly become the data analysis, they've
got to be very careful, because Google owns so many things now and has taken over on other people's networks. This ability for IBM to take over them.
Well, or Google. I mean, Google could be the same thing, I guess.
But if you look at the vendors now, what I predict is lots of operators desperate for revenues talking smart cities for a while as a new buzzword. Lots of vendors talking smart applications as a buzzword, not necessarily knowing how to do it. And probably the people that will win will be somebody does something in China on a big scale, and the vendors will say, well, that's where we're going to focus our efforts, because we can develop them, we can get 500 million people, or we can get 50 million people. Or number two would be an incredibly wealthy nation like Dubai and the Emirates, where there's this absolute will to deliver something, and there's the financial resources. Behind that, everybody else is going to probably end up behind a standard, in the same way as Wibro sort of was a version of WiMAX that people used because Korea had got behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more, I can't use the word, but that word that means rubbish, talked about this in the next couple of years, more rubbish than progress.
So, I mean, I'm getting around to my last sort of set of questions before we open it up, but what do you think the biggest risks from an infrastructure point of view and mistakes that are going to be made as we go forward with this? Marwan?
There are actually two risks which I see. Is that the first thing is to adaptation of the right security practice when we are building up the whole infrastructure from ground up to the top, from the infrastructure, connectivities, ICT infrastructure, virtualizations, let's say cloud computing, up to the analytics solutions. Second is to have the right IT architecture on building up the whole blocks. Without these two having it chosen in the right stage, then we will have silos environments which will impact the whole creation later on of the whole entire ecosystem.
So the data gathering and protection of the data gathering and the analysis is really the utmost thing, and starting with security from the very beginning and building everything up from a secure platform, actually, rather than trying to cover it up and patch it up afterwards.
Whenever we do any research or discussions about smart cities, the cyber security is actually number one in these fields. So this is what we've seen, and especially in running the whole security operations that I have, the amount of attacks that we see daily, it's huge. And just opening small interfaces to the internet, to our networks. So imagine that we are opening it now to the whole nation. So that will be a huge impact, and we should have the right strategy behind it.
Someone said, I think the price of peace is eternal vigilance, and I think this is maybe applying it here, the price of happiness is eternal vigilance. Yes. Any other views on that?
I'd suggest your network has to be right, because one fibre can download the Library of Congress in 10 seconds, every piece of media ever produced in 10 seconds. However, that doesn't make it the ideal solution everywhere. You need to have the overlaying, fibre-based network and an excellent wireless solution on top. So I can walk around, and the stuff that does work is if this tells things where I am, that works really, really well, and that works today. So there's an awful lot of stuff you can do around that. But if you start just patching up old systems and taking short-term decisions, 2-year business cases, so we'll just go to vectored VDSL and some of these other technologies, you're going to be going a lot slower than other countries, and the cities are going to be competing with these other cities. So in the UK, there's people saying 2 meg is enough, and yet in South Africa, they've got a 1 gigabit fibre to the home service. So you compare and contrast, where are people going to make investments? They'll be investing in Dubai, they'll be investing in Qatar, they'll be investing in Oman, because they've got this vision. And they've got the will to put the right infrastructure in place.
Yeah, and in terms of the risks, I think, security is definitely the fundamental one. Beyond that, I think I see two problems. One, not that much about the broadband itself, because when we speak about smart cities, what we will see, the nature of the connected devices will evolve. It will not be the same. It will not be just video traffic as we see it today, or basic internet traffic. It's about sensors. And one of the biggest risks that will happen, and that will happen anyway, there will be the lack of harmonization will introduce many protocols, a lot of proprietary protocols, and a lot of silo-based solutions that will then drive their own requirement, their own hardware, their own middleware, their own storage and analytics, etc. So that's number one. And these then will not be able to communicate together to create really the smart city experience. And
but don't we always have that? That's what vendors create. They create their own proprietary protocols to get their competitive advantages.
Imagine this at a much, much higher scale. And the second risk is, again, the networks themselves today not being ready. It has nothing to do with today's traffic. They are not ready. They are not proven and tested to carry sensor traffic and to deliver the SLAs required by, these smart services in the healthcare or rather the real-time ones.
I think
so these are
two
big risks there. The industry today is not ready to guarantee the quality of the services required in a smart city. Just not.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I mean, one of the mantras that I've got back at home is on the e-health side, where we're currently selling, all the usual smart e-health devices for pedometers and blood pressure and that sort of thing. But I see that just being the entry into a much longer relationship with the healthcare practices, and I'm looking more towards post-operative healthcare, where you want to take the patients out of the hospital and get them into the home as quickly as possible, which requires that you might have to have devices in the home. Now, those devices in the home have to be installed, they have to be connected, they have to be calibrated, and they also have to be checked regularly to make sure they're still working, which I would claim is one of the core competences of a telco, and very few other people can do that.
But it isn't. In that I've been talking about doing some stuff where you take the man-down security sensors that you have on guards at the perimeters of bases, so that if they get hit by something and they're down, you convert that into, for elderly people and for the infirm, and you put that in the home. And Deutsche Telekom don't know how to do it, and some of the other integrators in Germany don't know how to do it. They're actually going, hell, we need a platform for this. And I think we overestimate the ability in operators to find clever people who are not doing something else. We haven't got an infinite array of people because we're all running on really tight budgets, and so actually finding the intelligence and the investment to do that, and then the business case, which is pretty important, is tricky. So we're probably the right people, but we're
I was
the
going
right
to say,
resources.
the ability to keep up a 99.9999% reliability on SLAs for that type of equipment, and the network management to detect faults and fix them, especially when it comes to vital sign monitoring, is an opportunity. Junaid.
Yeah, I think very rightly said. The key challenge is security point of view, because once the dependence becomes more, then the expectations also become more.
And the risk becomes higher.
And the risk of a failure, the impact will be more.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest challenge, I think, so it means the quality of the networks will become more and more challenging to provide you that reliability or the availability, because now it is not dropping off a call, it may be a dropping of a life of somebody. So that was, I think, the impact of that will be, and this is why whosoever is going to involve in it, the low quality, low tech have to go to the next level, because more important things are on stake at that time.
So I would summarize that in summary, the communications infrastructure is pretty well coming along and almost there in most places. It's really going to revolve around data gathering, data structures, data protection, and network security is where the infrastructure has to be led. Is there any final comments on that before I
One more thing, I do believe smart cities and those massively distributed sensors around every place will add additional complexity on the diagnostic part for the telecom operator. As you know, the customer does know the operator doesn't know who are behind the scene. So this will add further complexity on the way how to manage the dissatisfaction of the customer. And this is where I do believe this area requires a bit to think about a monitoring and provisioning layer that is really intelligent to have all these sensors and demarcation points in order to relay the problem to the right partner within the ecosystem or within the chain. This is something could be essential to have this a bit working smoothly.
So it wouldn't just be having data structures for all of this, but also the way in which you structure the network hierarchy of the trillions of sensors and IoT devices compared to what we're normally used to today.
This comes with the cross-domain correlation, which cross-domain, because you will have different domains from the access network to the core of the network to the sensors, etc. And you will need to deliver that cross-domain correlation capability. That will be essential.
And if you allow me, one more thing. In terms of standardization, I do believe each device, smart device, should have a callback manager in order to relay certain things to the operator. And this is part of the standards that may help us to go smoothly to the market and to roll out these smart CBEs the right way. This is as well something.
But also having those domains of IoT devices and such might also contribute to an ability to protect domains from the security points that Marwan was talking about, to be able to secure those domains rather than having to secure the whole network just for one part of that domain.
This is very simple. Once talking about those domains, you can have them in a separate zone within the network. This is not an issue. Despite that, still hackers can reach you. Your data can be as well penetrated. So nobody can assure you that there is 100% security for data, privacy, data integrity, and all of that. So this is something will continue to be a threat wherever we have a data stored somewhere.
But here, on that point, I think if you today survey, one of the key reasons or values that a communication service provider carries today is trust. We trust for our payments. I mean, I trust to pay my service provider more than when I do any payment on internet, for example. Same thing for my data. We said it before. That's why communication service providers are poised to play a key role.
You're absolutely right. I visited Symantec in San Francisco last week, and the CTO there just said to me, you telcos have so much trust equity, he called it. You know, people trust the telco.
Yeah, again, but you will be liable. And the minute you have data integrity, the whole brand that you have built over the past years will collapse.
That's a very good point.
It is very, very much risky. And this is where we need to have the demarcation lines put in controls. It's not something we can
Trust
think
is
about.
hard to build and easy to lose. Yes, absolutely. Very good point. Okay. Can we open it up to questions? Anyone?
Actually, I don't have a question, just a feedback about when they said, especially in Jordan, they said that there is no authority coming from the government to force the company or the institute or even ministry to create a smart city. Actually, as an example, Hong Kong, as a city, there is no one coming from government to force the other to create smart city. So if we going to initiate this idea and build smart city, why not to initiate this and lead this idea and let's say create a win-to-win relation with others to able to create these smart cities?
Thank you. This win-win always for us goes beyond or beneath the business case. There is no win-win that goes out of the business case. Today, in Jordan, nobody from the operators can go by himself and install sensors in every street for the traffic jam. Nobody can go and distribute tablets for the students in the schools on his expense. Nobody today in Jordan can go and make the library of the health sector, nor the transportation system. So it goes joint by joint, but initially there should be a passion and a driver from the government itself to invest somehow and to start this momentum. And this is the initial momentum of friction requires to be shifted by the government, not by the operator. The minute this momentum being removed, things will go smoothly. There is a barrier now. Nobody can really, from the operator side, to take the risk at all. Because the ones who should pay for that at the early stage is the government. ولا rich ولا شيء عم
But it's a very good point. I mean, the operator surely should be able to help the government achieve some of its goals. I think a telco operator is in a position. I know we've done something on education in Hong Kong, learning management systems in Hong Kong, which has helped the government get over a problem they had with the publishers controlling the books. And I think there are ways in which the telco, especially with the enterprise solutions people in telco.
We have such initiatives, but none of them is really moving on. Now we have multiple initiatives with the education sector to build book zero, we name it, the curriculum that we have for grade 1, 2, 3, up to 8.
Started at the lowest level.
We have started with that, but unfortunately, we are not able to move on. Why? Because one, the student himself doesn't have access to the internet all the time. This is one thing. The second thing, he doesn't have the CBE to get connected to. And today, the economical situation in the country and the purchasing power of the people as well has a say on that. And in Jordan, 80% of the families, they own one device, a good device for to get in, a big screen.
Okay, well, that's a very different perspective. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Good evening. Shafiq Shaya from RIPE NCC. So, gentlemen, thank you for this discussion. It's really a very exciting discussion. You are talking about smart cities. That means more people to be connected. That means millions of devices. That means millions of sensors. So we have a problem here with this, what we call IPv4 depletion. No more IPv4. So my question is for the telecom service providers. What will you do to overcome this problem? What's the status of the IPv6 now, and what are your plans? Thank you.
Anybody want to answer that one?
IB version 6 has been implemented in many areas, and to move there, nothing really is preventing us. So I do believe from that perspective itself, there is no issue. This is number one. Number two, not necessarily to have each connected device has a public IP address, not necessarily. There are certain solutions that still, over a VPN tunnel, private IPs even, or shared IPs, still you can reach the connected device with secure measures as well. So personally, I don't see the lack of IPs is a barrier for the evolution of smart cities at all. And this is not the case in Dubai, and it will never be the case at all.
You should use a technique I learned in Saudi Arabia from my boss there. I call it swirly hands. You find your technical team and you go, fix this for me. And then you walk away.
So I know if anybody wants to speak to Frederick over there, he'll tell you that we've implemented IPv6 on our international global networks, and we're slowly starting to permeate that through our networks in Hong Kong now as well. So I mean, it does require an active migration plan to introduce it.
This is happening.
It's happening.
To version 6 is happening.
Yeah.
And the demand will drive that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the minute we have initiatives to support connected devices, you know, us as operators, we are dreaming to have these devices connected. Because the more the devices, the bigger the pipe. Then the more the money. This is how we see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The minute we have the pipe became larger, and in order to get it more larger, we need to activate IP version 6. It will be done in a few weeks time frame.
Okay, not quite that.
No.
Yeah.
Almost there.
But
There we are. Any last questions?
Sorry, but on that one, we have
Oh,
to just
sorry,
mention
Mounir.
that there is the version of the IPv6, which is the the low, the downgraded version of it, the 6 low pan. That would be also necessary to because you need also all the wireless, the sensors, to also use the same protocol. And that is, so it's not only a matter of the IPv6 as such, is also the sensors. You want them all. You don't want your sprinkler and then your light bulb and etc. Each one of them using a different protocol. Otherwise, it would be a nightmare, and it would be far from achieving the smart city concept. And that, I don't think that the industry today has. There was some standardization since 2008, but it's not like this at all. I can assure you today.
So,
It's a new thing.
So why didn't you mention that earlier? Any other questions? Are we? So we draw to the close there, and I'd like to thank the panel and the audience for sticking around to listen to us for so long. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.